You know, we read the Gospels and we always assume that we're the disciples, but we actually never think to examine or look in the mirror to see if we're the Pharisees. The world has enough malice on its own, okay? It does not need any of our help. I love me some Gloria Patri coffee, but it's so hot here that the ice cubes have already melted and I didn't even make this like 5 minutes ago. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like ever since 2020, y'all know what happened then, it has been really difficult to find community in Catholic spaces. And also, like, being an adult makes it a lot harder too, because like in high school and stuff like that, you're basically forced to interact with people who are your age, and if you go to college, you're forced to interact with people your age. The main demographic is people who are your age. But when you graduate from college and, you know, outside of a Newman Center, it's like, how do you find Catholic community? How do you find that community? And it's like, I don't have all the answers. Like, I'm still trying to figure it out. So take what I say with a grain of salt, because the advice that I give you guys, it might work for some of you, but it might not work for others, depending on where you live, how old you are, your demographic, what you're looking for in a community. Just like all of that stuff plays a role. But for myself, I am a very, very picky person when it comes to who I let into my life. I tend to pick more individual people instead of like group people, if that makes sense. I don't really hang out with groups. I don't like group settings anymore. So instead what I do is I either go to these groups and I will pick out the people who I feel like I vibe with the best, or, you know, are just normal, because finding normal people these days is also very, very difficult to do. But that's just me. That's the area of life that I'm in right now. Groups for me just don't really give me what I need community-wise. I find that a lot of groups in Catholic churches can be very cliquey, and if you weren't raised with them or went to the same school with them, or you weren't there when their clique was formed, you are an outsider. Not all of them, of course. I have met some wonderful inclusive groups, and that is great, but a majority of experiences that I've had regarding groups is that it's cliquey, and also it festers a lot of gossip and stuff like that I'm just like not really into. Like, I'm too old for this, you know what I mean? Like all that drama and all that stuff. Anyways, I feel like we want to find people who love the faith, maybe have similar hobbies to us or similar interests. And I think just in general, we just want somebody we can just be ourselves around and just vibe with. And I'm so grateful that our priest at oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the church name already. Pregnancy brain. All right, I don't know. Anyways, he reached out to me and was like, hey, you should meet this one girl. She's really chill. And you know what? He was right. She is really chill. And now we're friends. And I'm very grateful for her because she's like the only friend I have out here right now. And I'm not complaining because I am very, very picky about my friends and, again, who I let into my life. But to have somebody who's trustworthy and just gets you is so rare today. And I just have to fill her in on all the lore because we haven't known each other for like 20 years. So we just like fill each other in on everything. It's great. Unfortunately, because we live in the 21st century, I feel like we look for a lot of these connections and communities on our phones, online, on forums, Facebook groups, just like all those just like anything online. And I'm not saying that online friends are bad. Some of my best friends are online friends or people that I've met online. So I'm not saying you can't have internet friends or that having internet friends are bad, but I am saying that they are not a replacement for in real life friendships. They just can't replace in-person interactions and in-person friendships at the end of the day. You just cannot make the same comparison. But a lot of us find the Facebook groups, the Discord servers, the Reddit forums, and then we get sucked into either the charismatic Catholics or the trad aesthetics and, you know, all the commentary channels that are out there and everything like that. And at first, it kind of feels like a breath of fresh air. Like, finally, people who want to grow in holiness and who take their faith just as seriously as I do, and that's beautiful and that's something that we should all want. But if you stay in these groups or you stay online as long as I have, and you've seen the corrosion that can happen within these groups, I don't know, it stops tasting like refreshing water and starts tasting a lot more like drinking orange juice after you just brushed your teeth, which I used to do for fun as a teenager. Tells you everything you need to know about me. I think over time, the more that we spend in these groups, you either do one of two things. Either you become more like the people you watch the most, or you start to see that slowly in some of these circles and some of these people and influencers and groups, that the conversation isn't really about Christ anymore. It becomes a lot more about who is doing Catholicism right and who is doing it wrong. And eventually it just becomes this constant daily meat grinder content that like it festers gossip and anger and all this stuff that like we don't need, first of all, as a community. But it just kind of feeds this tribalistic and purist and just like, I don't know. Basically, it just like feeds all of this infighting that so many Christians see online. And then before you know it, the space that's supposed to help you grow in your faith and to bring you closer to Christ and to give you this beautiful community of people who pick you up when you're at your lowest starts to actually make you angry and resentful and deeply suspicious or judgmental of your parish priest and that lady that's sitting 2 rows in front of you who sneezed a little too loudly, or that guy who just got off his job with, I don't know, doing construction or something and he's wearing a hoodie to mass. Like, when did we decide that the badge of being an authentic Catholic is how much you look down on other Catholics? Or in general, just people as a whole, like your neighbors and things like that, because we are called to love our neighbor. And you know, I have talked about this a few times, about the whole toxic Catholic mentality online and offline, because online bleeds into offline, I have noticed quite a bit. And I just think that this is something we need to talk about, because I hear it from you guys all the time about how you guys have been judged, or about how the infighting online has really impacted your faith life negatively, how you've struggled with scrupulosity and stuff like that because of certain people online basically telling you things that sound dogmatic but are not. They're just self-imposed rules. And actually, an exclusive video I did for my patrons over on Patreon was about my trad trauma and all the things that I endured while I was a rad trad or a mad trad, because I got sucked into that when I first came back into my faith, and basically how I healed from it and what I consider myself now and all that stuff. Also, huge thanks to my patrons for actually choosing today's video topic, because they also get to vote on topics, they get extra exclusive content. It's just really great. We also have a group chat. So if you would like to help support the channel, definitely go check out my Patreon. I've linked it below. But I do want to make something clear here, is when I do tend to talk about this topic, I get a lot of people in my comments saying like, this isn't charitable of you, like you shouldn't be talking about this, you're bringing more attention to this issue. This issue needs attention brought to it. People need to know when they're being silly geese. Pointing out the toxicity in communities is not anti-Catholic or anti-charitable or anything like that. It's actually a great form of charity to hold our brothers and sisters accountable for their actions and behaviors, especially if those behaviors are detrimental to their soul. Like, you don't just cover up an infected wound and expect it to get better. You have to clean out the gunk, you have to actually wash it out. It's a little painful, you know what I mean? But that allows for proper healing, as opposed to just letting them get away with this behavior and allowing this type of, I don't know, mentality to run wild. Like, we can't evangelize to a broken world if our own subcultures are producing people who are bitter, arrogant, judgmental, uncharitable, and just like angry. The world has enough malice on its own, okay? It does not need any of our help. And actually, the Vatican did see this coming a couple of years ago, specifically the dicastery, I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. They released a pastoral reflection on social media, and I think you guys all need to read it. I'm linking it below just so you guys can read it. And in that document, they specifically warn us about digital tribalism and basically how online environments can intensify ideological postures, individualistic spaces, and it oversimplifies complex debates and creates these individualistic spaces that just seem to cater to extreme behaviors. So again, I highly suggest that you guys read this document. I think it will shine a lot of light on what I'm trying to talk about and communicate to you guys. But in this document, they specifically remind us of something that we are constantly forgetting when we're online. And that is that the person on the other side of that screen is your neighbor. And right now, social media is just full of people who have been beaten up and left bleeding by online Catholic mobs. And these mobs even go after their own, which is just completely baffling to me. But I have been on the receiving end of this. And at one time when I was a baby Catholic and I was still learning about things, I was definitely dishing this out too. I'm not afraid to say that. Really quick, before I get further into the video, I want to tell you guys about this awesome planner that Blessed Is She came out with. It's called A Happy Life, and I love it already. Officially, you can start using it in July, which is why I'm plugging it now, so that you guys have enough time to actually order one yourselves and you guys can get it in time. But I'm so excited to dive into this planner because there are just so many amazing things in here that you're not gonna get with any other planner. For example, They have an examination of conscience. They also have how to make a holy hour, as well as meal planning, feast days, like everything you could possibly need in one book. And honestly, I get analog fatigue, where it's like I constantly have to carry around so many things with me, but having everything in one book is a complete game changer, and especially with Beanie coming soon, I want to be organized and make sure that I have everything figured out, because anyone who has a child knows that organization and just having a schedule is so helpful to stay on top of things. So if that's something you're interested in, if you're a student or a mother and you guys just need to stay more organized, check out the planner from Blessed Is She. You guys can use my code AMBER10. I've linked it below for you guys, but now is the time to get it because you will be able to start using it in July, and I'm just so excited for it. Whatever area of life you're in right now, I really do think this will help you. You guys can find the link to this in the description below, and let's get on with the video. But I like to call this phase the return of the Pharisees for any Star Wars fans out there. You know, we read the Gospels and we always assume that we're the disciples, but we actually never think to examine or look in the mirror to see if we're the Pharisees. Because the Pharisees love rules, not because they love the one, God, who gave them those rules, but because these rules give them a metric which by they can judge whether or not they are better than you. And I just noticed that today in some Catholic corners or Catholic circles, that the faith is being reduced down to either a political identity or an aesthetic. And all you have to do to prove this is to take a look at the current landscape of Catholicism. I mean, we're looking at real-time tragedies unfold where communities are fracturing, almost to the brink of schism, just because they've elevated their own opinion above church teaching. And of course, church authority as well. I mean, I don't even want to get into the whole SSPX thing right now, so I'm not going to, but oh my goodness, is that a mess. So on one side, we have people who put their own opinions and their own authority above the church. Their entire identity becomes defined by rejecting the Second Vatican Council instead of, you know, being in communion with the body of Christ in Rome. But then on the other side of things, we see certain Catholic spaces treat the faith like a buffet, like cherry picking certain things. If something doesn't align with their own personal opinion, they're quick to just kind of throw it out, even though the church has taught it as a dogma or something that you do have to believe in order to be Catholic. And in my opinion, both sides are drinking the same Kool-Aid, just different flavors. And at the root of all of this, and this is just my personal opinion, I think all of this comes down to a lack of humility and acting out of a spirit of fear. Because when the Catholic faith starts becoming this weapon that you beat people over the head with in order to win an argument, you've just completely lost the plot. And if what you're learning and what you're talking about online is not leading you into deeper love of your neighbor and isn't being created for the greater good, then your content, your community, your relationships are completely empty. You can have the most beautiful liturgy in the world. All the women in your church can veil. You can pray 5 rosaries a day. You can have the most rugged manosphere workout routines and have a 6-pack of abs. You can go to prayer circles and you can be listening to K-Love. You can have your Baltimore catechism completely memorized. But if you're treating people like garbage online or offline, that's extremely detrimental to your soul and you're missing the plot. So for my followers, how do you guys spot this in your circles? Because it can be kind of hard to spot sometimes. People are very, I don't want to say sneaky, but like sometimes you just don't realize that something's toxic until you're in the depths, until you're in too deep. But yeah, how do you like spot something that's toxic before you get in too deep? These are my tips. The first thing I would suggest you watch for is the isolation protocol. So basically what I mean by that is toxic communities really thrive on a them versus us mentality or an us versus them mentality. So basically this is the kind of group that constantly gossips, always talks down about everyone and everything, even their own friends. Like their friends could be there 1 second, they're all happy and everything, their friend leaves and they're like, so you won't believe what Barbara did last weekend? These are also the kind of people that kind of live in a bubble. They refuse to associate with anybody who might disagree with them or force them to grow or question their own ideas. They basically surround themselves with yes men, like, oh, I can do no wrong. They literally just hype each other up constantly and they bolster each other in bad behavior, and it's, yeah. So when I used to be in groups like this, I would always ask myself, what is the fruit of this conversation? Like, is it a 2-hour long gossip about the latest church scandal or like the liturgical abuses in the next town over? Are they bashing people who question them or don't agree with them? Just like, what is the fruit of the conversations you are witnessing in these groups? And the reason I say this is because St. Thomas Aquinas actually listed detraction, which is revealing another person's faults without a serious valid reason, as a mortal sin because it destroys that person's reputation. And yet in so many Catholic spaces, detraction is kind of just treated like it's venting. People don't think twice about making a video about another creator instead of going into their DMs first and being like, hey dude, just wondering what you meant by this. Would you mind explaining this to me or helping me understand what you were trying to say here? I just feel like it's being taken the wrong way, or I don't know, just like having a decent human conversation behind the scenes instead of making it this public affair to get 5 seconds of fame. And then there is the performative side of things and like the spiritual gaslighting that I've also experienced in the groups. And I think this is one of the most damaging situations because this is where we put like human traditions, cultural preferences, or even like specific political views above what the church has taught or specific dogmas. And it's gotten to a specific point where it's like if a woman doesn't want to look or act like a trad wife, or a guy doesn't look like a traditional husky workout kind of man, they're basically told that they're not practicing the faith correctly. And it's basically one of those situations where people will tell you, well, you're just not praying enough. You need to pray more. God's just punishing you. What did you do to God? They're basically acting like Job's friends when you try to talk about, oh, I have depression, oh this, oh that. You just have demons. You just need to get an exorcism. Oh my gosh, please shut up. So they're met with this type of judgment and like matter-of-factness as opposed to compassion and charity and just proper community care, I guess you could say. And then online, something that I find horrifying about the online spaces is that it can turn the interior life, like our prayer life, into a public performance. Because in these public spaces, you are incentivized by these apps, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, etc., to basically be extreme and be as extreme as possible to get as many views, likes, comments. In this world, any attention is good attention, because at the end of the day, whatever is shocking and negative gets the most attention, gets the most views. That's why I struggle with my content so much, because I don't want to be that. I would rather be authentic and true to myself, but it's hard when the numbers feel like they're going down or I'm not reaching the people that I would like to reach. But I also recognize that it's in God's hands and God is allowing people to see my videos who need them. You can't fake authenticity. People know when you're being authentic versus when you're not. And I have a lot of enemies online. I don't know why. I have genuinely tried to figure it out and I don't know why. But genuinely, I'm just trying to be myself and I am not for everybody and I recognize that. And online, the algorithm does not reward the authentic, quiet, private, hidden virtue of just like a mother changing diapers or silent interior life, or talking about prayer and just like the mundane things and how people overcomplicate sainthood. The algorithm rewards the punchiest, most crazy out there hook and title and things like that. And it's just like, it's so inauthentic. It's so cheesy. Basically AI slop. I love a lot of people in the creator space, but I can pick out AI a million miles away. And unfortunately, I see so many people use it. And I'm not even talking about like, oh, it's compiling research for me, or oh, it helped me find this quote or something, because I use AI every now and then for stuff like that because it cuts down my research time in half and I appreciate it, but it also hallucinates links, so it's important to always fact check. But I'm just talking about people who just put something into AI and then they just copy and paste. They don't change anything about it. And to me, that's extremely deceptive, and I don't know, it just makes me feel icky because your followers are people who genuinely trust you. A lot of the time, they're the reason you get paid on these apps, because you have followers who watch your content and you're basically just feeding them AI slop. I understand the temptation to do that because you get so many more views, so many more clicks, so many more comments, but is it worth your soul at the end of the day? Anyways, I don't know. I forget where I was. But when you are online now, this toxic online culture basically forms this metric of holiness where your holiness and your prayer life and just being a Catholic in general becomes your incentive to make money, and it becomes sometimes completely performative. And then people begin to police each other's digital footprints. If you didn't post on a specific feast day, or you're following or friends with the wrong Catholic accounts, you can get dragged or called out on social media by some people for like no reason outside of just drama and people trying to stir the pot in order to get more views. And then also something that I I noticed a lot in people's comment sections is there will be non-Catholics or even Catholics, baby Catholics, who genuinely want to know the answer to someone. They genuinely are being very sweet about something. Maybe they're asking a really vulnerable question. These people aren't met with charity or kindness or like, hey, yeah, let's take this out of the comment section into the DMs and let's talk about it. Instead, you are met with the equivalent of a digital stoning, basically. Also, a lot of you guys have come to my email or my DMs or my comment section telling me what one creator or somebody responded to you when you just asked a genuine question. That was, again, easy. It wasn't inflammatory. You weren't specifically looking to fight or anything. You just wanted to know something. And how you were just met with like this brutal, combative type of comment back. And on behalf of digital creators, I'm so sorry if you've experienced that and it put a sour taste in your mouth with the Catholic Church. Unfortunately, those types of people are everywhere. It's not just in the church, but it really breaks my heart when Catholics do not act Christ-like online. And I know it's hard. Genuinely, I get that. I've struggled with it as well, but we don't have an excuse. If you're one of those people who gets upset online so easily and you have to win the argument instead of winning the heart, and you have to like force them to see your side of the argument and make things right, and then they block you, you did not win that argument. You just lost a soul. That is not something to celebrate. You just let your pride and ego get in the way. And so many people do that, and I used to do that too, and that's why I'm just warning you guys about it. Sometimes it's best to walk away and not say anything than it is to get super riled up and basically start fighting in the comments. So if your Catholic faith is built on having a perfect, seamless, drama-free community, your faith is built on sand, because unfortunately people are sinners and we're going to mess up and we're going to make mistakes. And that's why forgiveness is such a beautiful thing. Your faith must be anchored in the person of Jesus Christ, the sacraments, especially the Holy Eucharist and confession. And if the community around you is failing, then you must become the community that is missing. You must be the one who brings the community. You must be the one who brings the charity, the truth, the humility, the forgiveness. That's on you. So how do you do that? Because that's kind of a lot of pressure, I'm not gonna lie. I don't mean to put pressure, of course, but if you see a need and nobody else is filling it, God might be showing you that need so that you can fill it. And I think it all starts with being committed to reality. Basically, you have to log off. We need to understand that any digital connections that we have online also need to serve us in the real world. You cannot live your faith entirely through a screen. That's just not how this works. You need to look your neighbor in the eye, and it's so much harder to say vicious comments to somebody when you're face to face with them. So if we want to change the culture in our communities, we have to change our own hearts first. We need to stop consuming Catholic media that feeds our anger, our resentment, our judgment, and makes us think ill of our neighbor. And instead, we need to volunteer more, look our neighbor in the eye, get involved in our church, start consuming more scripture and prayer and life-giving content. And most importantly, we need to learn how to disagree without destroying each other. But that is all I have for you guys today. I hope that this video helps you, or at least offers some camaraderie, because I know so many of you guys struggle with what I've talked about in this video, and I just want you to know you're not alone. But let me know in the comments below what you guys think about this. What has your experience been online? Has it been positive, negative? How has it impacted your faith life? And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Toodles!